let's welcome in Mr. R. Sreesankar, Head of Institutional Equities at Prabhudas, Lilladher. Good morning, Mr. Sreesankar. Always good to have you on the show. Let's speak about the kind of range-bound move that we've been within as far as the benchmarks go, and even about the larger IT as well as bank earnings that are behind us. Have they been in line or just about a little above your expectations? The earnings till now of the larger private banks and the marquee IT names, sir?
What we would say is an IT is more or less, it's all over the place. Let me put it up this way. So people who are expecting a very, very bad numbers coming out, given the scenario which is out there, I think relatively it's withstood the test. That's the way I will put it across. But on the bank side, HDFC, it's been a steady performer, continues to be steady, not much a huge slippages on the asset quality, etc. Kotak Mahindra, first 2 quarters has been a more or less subdued and has given a good guidance for probably in the growth in the second half. And Axis disappointed clearly from a point of view of asset quality. Well, the growth has been pretty robust in terms of retail growth and SME growth, etc. But the kind of slippages that they have reported to NPA, and in fact, probably it cements a lot of expectation that some of these watch list accounts would have been already NPA with other banks, which has now become an NPA for Axis, and with a further guidance that the increased amount of watch list accounts slipping to NPA doesn't augur well for the stock. So I expect a bit of a correction out there.
What are you making of all the development around the
And
Tata?
if you come back to companies like the finance,
no, go ahead, Mr. Sreesankar, to complete your point.
Sorry. No, then I was talking about other results like MMFS, Mahindra Financials. Again, the commentary has been pretty good. That though we continue to see that the stress on some of the existing loans or which is there, and on Shriram Transport Finance about the yield contracting because the older vehicles about 10 years and not having it. So it's more or less, I would say that in line with expectations in many cases. But Axis was a complete, I wouldn't say a surprise, but it will definitely disappointed the market, and the call also never came through at that confidence level.
Right. I also wanted to ask you about what are you making of all the development that we've seen around the Tata Group in the last 36 hours, especially from the perspective of minority shareholders, some of the retail money that's invested in them, with our legal battle likely going forward and some kind of uncertainty coming in with regards to the kind of management changes that they're looking at. What is your advice? Stay invested in these names or possibly ride out the volatility and then relook at them at a later point?
No, again, it's none of my business to comment on what management changes or what happens out there. But from a point of view of looking at the way the entire group performance has been, it has never moved and has been volatile stock. It's been a steady stocks for over a period of time. You see TCS, you see Tata Motors. Tata Motors, in line with JLR performance, has been moving on a different orbit altogether. TCS, on a consistently that huge cash flows that they generate, has been trading, and the valuations have been at a different level. So I think even other businesses, be it in terms of the hotels business, be it in terms of the chemicals business, the agrochemical business, the power business, it's all have moved in line with various other industries. And if you're not seeing anything great, probably it has given an average performance. Otherwise, you've seen the performances like Tata Motors and TCS, etc., which has been a strong performer over a period of time. So my view is that it will be business as usual as we see it. Now, for a retail investor who's looking for a longer term, These are stocks which have been a steady performer. That's the way I see it.
Mr. Sreesankar, a call on the pharma space. Dr. Reddy is beating estimates, but still a 60% slide on profits. US business remains a key concern for them, and that's something that's playing out in some of the other pharma names as well. Aurobindo has received just about 12 approvals out of 33 products that it intends to launch in the US in the coming few quarters. Key concerns coming in for some of these pharma names. How would you play out this space?
We have been negative on the large pharma space. That's Reddy, Sun, Cipla, and Lupin. Our negativity comes from the challenges that is there in the US and the new product launches by a lot of these companies, be it Glenmark, Aurobindo, etc., in the injectable space, which could actually be hampering some of the larger companies. So we have a buy and top picks from Glenmark and Aurobindo, while we have kept away from the four major companies. To answer specifically on Dr. Reddy's, the results were better than our expectations because the price erosion that was anticipated in some of his products has not happened to the extent that we anticipated. So it has been a better.
Right, Mr. Sreesankar, the latter half of the earnings will be dominated by the weaker names, typically the metals space, the oil space, and the exploration space. What's your expectation from the metals, be it, ferrous or even a Hindalco or Vedanta for that matter?
Oh, see. The overall sentiments on the commodity space doesn't look good. So on the oil metal space, it's a continuation of that overall sentiment. I don't think anything on a quarter-on-quarter basis. There could be, if the inventory gains come in or not, there could be various changes which will keep happening. Apart from that, on a structural basis, nothing, no change. Now coming back to the oil space, in last quarter everybody had a huge inventory gain. In the current quarter of September, you don't have that inventory gain. So if you look at a quarter-on-quarter performance, there is a chance that all the oil companies will report will have a lower performance than what they had it in the previous quarter. So I don't think that is going to change our structural way of thinking.
Right. We've, of course, been talking about the consumption theme through and through HUL ITC earnings today as well. Auto, we know about the key triggers, but let's talk some of the other names from the consumption basket. Asian Paints yesterday posting strong results. You've seen a strong reaction play out on the stock. Or some of the QSRs. Jubilant Food is up in trade today. You also have physical gold buying that's gained momentum because of the festive season. So maybe something like a Titan or some of your other jewelry stocks, PC, Gitanjali, and gold-linked stocks, Muthoot, Manappuram. Any call on some of these other consumption spaces that possibly do not get the same kind of market talk that we give to auto and consumer discretionary?
I think from a point of view, if you look at, even if you listen to the conference calls of Mahindra Finance, etc., the expectation that the farm income post the good monsoon towards the second half in December, plus towards the end of third quarter and fourth quarter, is expected to be on the higher side. So your positive way of thinking for the entire marketplace and the companies is coming from the commentaries given by these companies, and which is expected to be good. Now, if you look for what happens for this September quarter results, it need not be a great story, because Asian Paints would have continued to have that good numbers which came in terms of volume growth. But if one looks at tile manufacturers, like Kajari, etc., the volume growth were disappointing, to say the least. So you have actually seen some of the pressures, stock correcting, etc., from those from the high levels. So now it's been a bit all around the place in terms of the commentary which everybody is giving. So my thought process is it's more back-ended. Probably you will see towards the end of third quarter certain pickup, and fourth quarter probably could be a real surprise in terms of a stronger demand growth which could happen. And you're continuing to see the demand happening in vehicles, be it in two-wheelers, four-wheelers, passenger vehicles, etc. While commercial vehicles is a so-so kind of a performance, and you will probably see, to quote a commentary, you see much more discounts out there.
Fair point. Mr. Sreesankar, before we close in on this show, your sectoral preferences at this point, and if you can name some stocks that look good to go from here on as well.
So we continue to remain optimistic on the financial services sector. We like the private sector banks, Kotak Mahindra, HDFC. Then we like SBI. SBI among the public sector banks, which we think is very much undervalued, is probably the best pick that we have. And we think Axis Bank and ICICI will have certain corrections which will happen. Probably ICICI will also correct in line with this, what happened in Axis. And once these stocks correct, we need to have a look. And about Shriram Transport Finance and Mahindra Finance, we remain cautious on it. The optimism is there, but I think it's fairly priced in at this stage for those kind of optimism. We like Glenmark and Aurobindo, as I mentioned, in the pharma space. We like HUL, we like Britannia in the FMCG space. So across the board, we have certain preferences, and in IT we continue to like Hexaware, NIT Technologies and Infosys in the large caps.
Right, Mr. Sreesankar, I know you have to go, but just one last word on telecom. Bharti Airtel earnings above estimates. Idea has been on a bounce back over the last 1 week, building up a war chest, of course, to fight off the battle from Jio. But is the negativism around some of these telecom names overdone, and could there be a value play emerging over here?
No, the biggest question is the worst over? Have we seen the end of the worst? My view, I think we have not seen what will really pan out in the next 2 years. Probably no one will make money. So, for all probability, a lot of people may keep away from that particular sector till the time more clarity emerges.
Mr. Sreesankar, wait for clarity on the telecom space, and of course he mentioned some of the sectors and spaces he likes. Appreciate you speaking to us this morning. Thank you for joining us, and a happy